calm, suspenseful tone. Welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're diving into one of the most mysterious and chilling encounters in American folklore, a story of prospectors, a remote mountain cabin, and a night of terror, unlike anything ever recorded. This is the tale of the Battle of Ape Canyon. Pause. Low, ominous background sound. Carved into the rugged southeastern shoulder of Mount St. Helens lies a narrow gorge, hidden deep within Washington's wilderness. Today, it's known as Ape Canyon. But the name didn't come from maps or from explorers. It was born out of a shocking confrontation in the summer of 1924, a fight between men and creatures that seemed not quite human. A struggle that blurred the line between folklore and reality. Pause. Slower tone. To understand this story, we first need to look back at the legends whispered long before settlers arrived. Among the indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest, tribes like the Klallam and the Cowlitz, there were stories of a secretive race. They called them the Sea-Atik. According to tribal accounts, these beings were unlike any other. Standing 7 to 8 feet tall, their bodies were covered in thick hair like animal hides. They were described as nocturnal, living deep in caves, only coming out at night to hunt and steal food. And worse, they were feared as sorcerers. Dramatic pause. It was said they could bewitch their victims, casting spells on both people and animals. Some legends even claimed the Sea-Atik could kill by sheer willpower, by projecting the thought of death into the mind of their enemy. Sound cue. Faint echoing whispers. Eerie background. These beings, tribes said, could mimic any animal's call, communicate telepathically, and blend into the forest so well they could vanish before your very eyes. For generations, the tribes avoided them, steering clear of the caves and high valleys where they were believed to dwell. By the turn of the 20th century, sightings grew rare. Many assumed the Sea-Atik were gone forever, just myths fading into the past, but legends have a way of returning. The small town of Kelso, Washington in the 1920s was a rough place. A hub for miners, loggers, and drifters, its taverns and brothels earned it the nickname Little Chicago. It was here, in the early hours of Saturday, July 12, 1924, that a group of weary gold prospectors stumbled into one of Kelso's many taverns. Their clothes were torn, their faces pale. They ordered drinks with shaking hands, and soon they began to talk. What they told the other patrons that morning would spread like wildfire, a story so unbelievable, yet told with such conviction that people couldn't look away. They claimed they had survived a night-long battle with what they called mountain devils. Pause, increase intensity, and this is how the Battle of Ape Canyon began. There were 5 men in the group: Marion Smith, the leader, his son, Roy Smith, 2 companions, Gabe Lefevre and John Peterson, and finally, Fred Beck, who would become the main voice of this tale. For weeks they had been prospecting in the foothills near Mount St. Helens, searching for veins of gold. They built a small cabin near the Lewis River, where they stayed while they worked. At first, everything went as planned, but soon they felt it, the uneasy sensation of being watched. Tracks appeared near their cabin, massive footprints, 14 inches long, with only 4 stubby toes. And in the shadows they glimpsed something, a figure, large, upright, moving in a way no bear ever could. The men dismissed it at first, but deep down, they knew something was wrong. On Friday, July 11th, the men ate a late lunch before heading out to pan for gold. As they hiked, the air grew strangely still. Then, suddenly, movement. Sound cue, rustling, low growl. From a ravine ahead, 4 massive shapes emerged. Fred Beck later described them as towering gorilla-like creatures, covered head to toe, in matted black hair. Each one weighed nearly 400 pounds. Dramatic pause. Time seemed to freeze. The men and the beasts locked eyes in silence. Then one of the giants stepped forward and unleashed a deafening roar. Sound cue, echoing. Or panic erupted. The prospectors stumbled backward, scrambling for their rifles. Beck raised his weapon and fired. Shot after shot rang out, echoing across the canyon. Finally, one bullet struck true. The creature staggered, fell, and tumbled down into the ravine. The way, others howled in fury, and the men ran for their lives. The sun dipped behind the mountains as the prospectors reached their cabin. Their breaths came in ragged gasps. They barred the door, nailed planks across the windows, gathered axes, pistols, and rifles. Then the attack began. Sound cue, pounding thuds on wood. The cabin shook under heavy blows. Fists, or maybe rocks, hammering the walls. Howls and screams surrounded them. Inhuman, guttural, echoing from every direction. One of the creatures smashed part of the wall, forcing its way in. Roy Smith swung an axe, but the intruder struck him aside like a rag doll. Only a gunshot from Marion drove it back. Moments later, the roof gave way. Sound cue, crashing wood, rocks tumbling, huge stones rained down inside, smashing furniture. One rock struck Fred Beck in the head, knocking him unconscious. When he awoke 2 hours later, the siege was still raging. His friends crouched beside him, firing through holes in the roof whenever shadows passed above. The attack went on for hours. The monsters seemed relentless. Finally, as dawn broke, the howls faded. The pounding stopped. Silence fell. Cautiously, the men peered outside. No sign of movement. Grabbing what little they could carry, they abandoned the cabin and fled toward Kelso, where they would tell the world what had happened. The story spread quickly. Newspapers called it the Battle of Ape Canyon. 2 state park rangers, J.H. Huffman and Bill Welch, joined Fred Beck to investigate the site. The ravine revealed no body, but when they reached the cabin, the evidence was undeniable. The roof was smashed in, furniture shattered, the floor littered with rocks, and outside in the dirt they found enormous footprints, exactly as Beck had described. The rangers documented everything. But what they had witnessed wasn't enough to answer the question burning in everyone's mind. What really attacked those men? The story captivated the nation. Visitors flocked to the area, hoping to glimpse the mountain devils. Skeptics soon weighed in. Some claimed the prospectors were drunk or imagining things. Others suggested it was all a hoax. Decades later, in the 1950s, an article claimed the truth had finally come out. Former YMCA campers admitted that they, not monsters, had pelted the cabin with rocks while shouting and making noises. According to them, the prospectors had mistaken a prank for a night of terror. Skeptical pause. But if that were true, how could they explain the massive footprints? Fred Beck never accepted the hoax theory. He insisted until his dying day that the attackers were real, not human, not pranksters, but something far stranger. Over time, his views evolved. While some of his fellow miners believed the creatures were simply wild beasts living in caves, Beck began to suggest something more otherworldly. He believed they were interdimensional beings. In later writings, Beck connected sightings of Bigfoot in North America to reports of the Yeti in Asia. He argued they were part of a global pattern, incursions from a parallel reality. Wild? Maybe. But his conviction never wavered. The Pacific Northwest remains a hotspot for Bigfoot sightings. Over a third of all North American reports come from this region. Some tribes still tell of cannibalistic wild men who retreated to the mountains, long ago, evolving into something more beast than human. Scientists, meanwhile, have speculated that these creatures could be a surviving hominid, thought extinct, that managed to endure in remote regions. But no one has ever captured definitive proof, and Ape Canyon's mystery didn't end in 1924. In 1963, nearly 40 years after the infamous battle, a group of mountaineers were skiing down the slopes of Mount St. Helens. They stopped at a rock formation called Dog's Head to rest. One of them, Jim Carter, stayed behind to take a photo. When the others looked back, Carter was gone. His tracks were soon discovered in the snow. But they didn't lead down the mountain. Instead, they veered wildly off course, darting in strange directions as if he were fleeing something unseen. The tracks showed leaps, sharp turns, and reckless maneuvers. The kind of skiing no experienced mountaineer would risk. Finally, the trail ended near a steep drop. Carter was never found. Despite weeks of searching, not a single trace of him turned up, just like the monster Beck claimed to have shot decades earlier. Jim Carter vanished without a trace. So what happened in Ape Canyon? Did a group of miners truly fight off a horde of monstrous creatures? Was it a prank gone wrong? Or was it something even stranger? Beings from another world, stepping briefly into ours? Pause. Slow, suspenseful tone. The truth may never be known. But the story has endured for nearly a century, passed down as one of the most terrifying and mysterious encounters in American history, a reminder that in the vast wilderness, legends sometimes have sharp teeth. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this retelling of the Battle of Ape Canyon, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss our next exploration into the unknown. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe, and fade out with eerie ambient sound.